Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Todd Rodden. I'm a certified business and executive coach. I own Aspire Action Coach based here in the Dayton, Ohio area. And we are thrilled today to have Gery Deer join us. I think you guys are going to love
Thrilled.
this
That's
conversation.
great.
So, we're thrilled to have him here. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Gery is passionate about communications. He's a serial entrepreneur, involved a lot in the community, and just a highly connected individual. So I think you're all going to gain from this conversation. So, for those of you who are new, though, to the spotlight, we're thrilled to have you, and we encourage you to hit the subscribe button so you can receive other future messages like you're going to hear from Gery today as well. And also, we always love to have you hit the like button as well. So, Gery, welcome to the spotlight. Again, folks, Gery is the founder and creative director of GLD Communications. Again, passionate a leader, passionate about communications, also an award-winning copywriter. And I'm sure he's going to tell more about his story. So, Gery, welcome to the series. Take a minute, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the business and a little bit more about GLD Communications.
Well, thanks, Todd. I actually, I was just thinking about this because I was working on a piece that I was writing for somebody, and I had to give them a bio. And it's interesting when you have a diverse background like mine, you can't do I went to this school for this long and I did this job, and I don't have that. I've got it reads like somebody's weird encyclopedic thing from Wikipedia or something. But I actually got started as an engineer. I was working in college to get my engineering degree. But prior to that, I was in pre-med. So I had this whole thing was very different. Then it switched over to engineering. And after I graduated, I actually did work in engineering for several years. I did some travel and worked in oil refinery research, and I worked in testing centers, and I worked in data development. And my minor was in computer science. So I was doing all this together. But in order to pay for school, I took a job as a staff writer for the college newspaper. And that started my writing career. And that's the thing that actually stuck. Over the time, when I left my corporate job in 1998, I was a tech support specialist. I was writing manuals, and I was doing coding for these new applications that were just coming out. This was around 1997, 98. And there was new software coming out. It was a huge insurance company, and they had decided to go into the financial business. So we were developing the software for that, and I just kind of got tired of it. It's like a typical thing. You have people over you who don't know the job as well as you do, and it's constant butting heads. And it was like, all right, time to go. I'm going to go do my own thing. So I left the company at 8:30 in the morning, and by 9:45, I had started my business. And it was that quick. It took me a little while to drive to my parents' place because I was working in Columbus, and I drove to my parents' place in Jamestown, Ohio, and that's about a 45-minute to an hour drive. And I walked in, and my mom was like, "So what are you going to do now? What about that computer thing you're always talking about?" So 5 minutes from then, I started a computer IT firm, and I was freelance writing for all these publications. So it was like these two things were going side by side. And over the years, I sort of figured out which things I liked better, which things had more potential. I'd also worked in the entertainment business a bit, so I knew videography and I knew filmography and things like that. Script writing, as you mentioned, the copywriting. Copywriters are the backbone of advertising, and that was a whole thing. I didn't even realize that was something I could apply my journalism background to. So I was doing all this at once. The company's changed a lot in the last 25 years or so. We've changed names twice, only to change a word here and there. And I think we were talking before we started up that there was a whole story behind the company name. The full length name is GLD Enterprises Communications Limited. So it doesn't fit on the patch. So we went to GLD Communications just to keep it simple, because really, if you take all the things, and this is where it really comes into play, one of the things we're not good at as people, as a society, is we want to put people in a box. We want to make sure that you do this thing and that's all you do, right? We hear that all the time. Like, you've got to be a specialist. You have to do this. That's great, and you should. But if you don't have a diverse background, if you don't have a diverse understanding of everything around you related to that, you can't do the job. No matter how many degrees you put after your name, there's just not there. So I took GLD Enterprises and whittled it down until I was using every one of my skills, the computer work, the writing, just all the backgrounds, watching my parents run their business. I grew up on a cattle farm, and my dad had a trucking business, and he was a vocational teacher. So we had all this going on at once, and I learned from that. And I think that's what really spawned it. So, 25 years later, here I am. I'm still trying to keep it going. And so far, table's still here. So I guess we're doing all right for now.
So maybe take a minute to kind of build upon that. I mean, again, crazy story. I mean, I just think of the number of different job titles you just mentioned that you've had, right? Is great, incredible. But in terms of where you're at now with the business, with GLD Communications, in
Well,
terms of
now we've
key
kind of,
services and ideal customers for you.
yeah, we've settled into, when I started morphing it away from the IT work, we kept that in the background because I needed something as I was developing the communication side. I needed something to keep the lights on. So as you know, anytime you change a business, you're kind of starting over. There's aspects of it. It's not like launching a new product. We have no physical thing to sell you. So it's not like I can just go, hey, I'm going to make microphones now, and I'm going to sell you this microphone, and you're going to understand it and buy it. It's not how it works. So one of the things I have to be able to do is sort of focus that. And over the last maybe 8 or 9 years, I've taken the marketing aspect, because I'm sure you realize, and a lot of people watching this realize, everybody's a marketing expert. Just ask them. Everyone's a marketing expert. So I sort of peeled away from that and took that and refined it into public relations, because it took my journalism background. I've been published over 4,000 times. I think by this point, I know what the editors are looking for. And don't get me started on AI. AI can't do this. This is a human story that you have to get from the person. So that was what I was good at, was features. So we took that. My partner, Julie Barth, started up with me in the beginning of 2019, and she took on the video production side, and we put all this stuff together. So now we're telling people stories, and we're able to do that in a way that has a better understanding of the holistic layout of how we use them, rather than it just being content that you're chucking out on social media. We're building assets that you can continue to go back to, that are permanent. If you go, like our clients now they're getting featured on like Yahoo News and Bloomberg and all these places. Their article that we're doing shows up there. It's not just a quick 6-second piece on Facebook. It's got some power to it. So we can use then all these other things, the social media and the digital marketing, to point to that. So that way there's credibility there that you can't get through typical marketing or advertising. And it's giving us a niche. It's hard to explain to people. So our clients are, we don't take a lot at once. We do 2 or 3 at a time, and that's really about it. And we have an exclusivity to this. It's not about capacity. It's about, how do I make sure you are important, that you are out there first, that we don't put your PR piece out at the same time that the Labor Day weekend sales are coming, when everything gets blown out of proportion, and you never see somebody's advertising then. You see the sales at the local retailers. That's not who we want. So we want to make sure that we understand all that. That's how we've put it together. And that's what GLD has become.
So, do you focus in any particular industry segments, or do you
Not
work
really?
on clients?
No, because there are some things I'm more versed at that I don't have to go look it up, so to speak. But not really. We've got clients that range from nonprofits to banks to, gosh, I can't even think right now. I'm looking at our job board. It's over on the wall. We've got dog trainers. We've got, my partner sitting over here. She gave me some cues. We've got some dog trainers. We've got all this. I mean, construction companies, commercial and residential. I've had heating and air firms. I've had, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I had trucking companies, because that's a background I understand. I understand agriculture really well. So there's a lot to it. I've also worked with entertainment companies. I work a lot with publishers. Because I'm a writer. I understand the publishing industry. We edit, we help them get to publishing. We walk with the publisher to promote the books. So there's a lot to it. It really doesn't have a niche, because the niche is the what we're actually doing. So we can apply it to just about any kind of business or industry. It works everywhere.
So obviously you'll do obviously way beyond content, right? You talked about, putting
Yeah.
together the story and getting it out there. Then you also do then kind of the distribution through, say, social media channels
Yes.
and other channels as well, kind of the
Yeah.
whole bundle for them?
So the PR piece is actually part of a feature article. If you think about this, if you don't know what the newswire is, it still exists. Remember the old days, they had the teletype machines and something would come across the newswire and the editor would pull it off and hand it to a copy boy, and the copy boy would type it all up, and then it would go to typesetting and it would go to the printer, and that becomes the newspaper, right? And it worked like that for 100 years. Well, it still works the same way, except drops into an email box now. So what we do is take the PR piece, which has the video links in it. We build a YouTube channel for the videos to go to. And then we write the piece. I write the feature story about the business, and we have to find a hook. We have to find a thing that's publicly relevant. This isn't a press release. It's a feature story. So people think of PR, the first thing in their mind is a press release. Well, I don't need you. I can do press releases. That's not what we're doing. We're taking that concept to the point of the newswire already got it. It's done. And most of the newswire services, the media outlets just grab it and drop it into their system. So you don't need an editor. You don't need a reporter to go do something about it. But then when they see it and realize, hey, this is unusual, this guy does XYZ, then they go, we need to do a feature on this. Now you get a call from that publication going, oh, we saw your story. We'd like to go more deep. We'd like to see what else you've got in this. And so we take all of that, and you mentioned the social media, then we'll build a social media plan that has the social media calling back to all this and using it in the content. It still means that the client has to do regular social media on a constant basis, but we throw these in as credible media so that it supplements what they're doing. It supplements their advertising and gives all of that credibility. And you can't get this with just paid ads. It doesn't work. You can't do credibility in advertising. This is all about authenticity, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, and being able to get that authentic story out there can just be tremendously powerful.
It's
right?
what we're doing right. This is PR.
Yeah.
People ask, why am I on so many podcasts? It's because it's good for me to do this. This is the stuff I don't have to write about myself, right? So thank you for that. You gave me an piece.
Happy to help. So that builds right on. So I'm always curious with folks who are, great with communications, marketing firms, communications firms, how they market. What are your best strategies?
That's a really good question. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. No, it's you can't put an ad out and get work for a business like ours. It doesn't work like that. Number one is relationships. We market through referrals, direct referrals. We're in organizations like BNI. We're in chamber organizations where we're very active, and I'm out there all the time. And you really are knocking on doors. I mean, you're beating the bushes trying to build these relationships. So some of it is direct client interaction. So somebody meets you somewhere and they decide they want to work with you. They get a referral from someone. They decide to want to work with you. But there are also collaborations. So other marketing agencies can use what we do because they don't have a public relations specialist. They might have somebody who can do press releases, but as I said, that's not what we're up to. So I can do a press release for you in about 20 minutes. I will charge you $1,500 for it because I'm really good at them. But at the same time, they're not going to go anywhere. And then you're going to come back and go, why did I spend this money? And I'll have to say, I told you not to do that. We'll do it the other way. So we can put our own press out, which we do, but we sponsor a lot of things too. Golf outings, do some work for some nonprofits, and for which we are paid a little bit, but we'll typically put ourselves on as a sponsor, things like that. And that helps us a little bit too. There's a little bit of digital advertising because we are very active on social media. You'll see a lot of things from GLD Communications on LinkedIn. And we do a lot on various channels on Instagram and Facebook. We don't do much of anything else. Mostly because most of our clients, it's B2B. So they're not picking us up from TikTok. They're just not going to. I mean, we're in the business of making videos, and I have no interest in putting stuff out there because they're not going to see it.
Yeah, it's not where they're at. Yeah.
No, it's not where they are. So now that said, if they're a certain type of business, I will tell them, hey, you need to make sure your video shows up on TikTok. It shows up on wherever. We'll give them that advice. And sometimes we'll do it for them. But the whole concept for us is to make sure that we're present. It's really all about being available. And we don't just work in the local area. I should point that out. My network is pretty big. I have clients in Washington, D.C. I have clients in California. I have one that we worked with this year in the UK. It's all over the place. It just depends on, in fact, most of the publishers I work with are out of state. I don't think I've got any publishers in Ohio right now. So it's a mix. It really just depends on what people are interested in.
So Gery, 25-ish years in this. You talked about several different pivots. What's a past roadblock that really jumps out to you? And what did you learn? What was the challenge, and what did you learn through that?
Make sure you buy typewriter ribbon because eventually they're going to stop making it. No, I think there were a couple things that hit. My business has always been one thing I've been told I'm good at, and I think I am, is recognizing when the market shifts. What's important to people, what kind of business uses what you do, which things we have in our toolbox that people are buying, which thing is more important to them, and how to stand out. That unique selling proposition everybody's always talking about. It's a moving target here because it depends on which client I'm talking to. Maybe that person needs this or that person needs that. So there are two stumbling blocks. One of them is trying to explain what you do. It's very hard for me. If I just say I'm a marketing agency, it goes in one ear and out the other because everybody's a marketing agency. If I say I'm a copywriter, again, poop, I don't need that. I've got Chat GTP. Well, don't even get me started. But when you combine all this, or videography, that's the big one, because it's our best moneymaker. The thing that we spend the most time on is full video projects. We do whole series. We do a hero video and then smaller pieces that get broken up to be used for social media or advertising or streaming. And those things become the stumbling block trying to get people to understand how they work. But pivoting when things change, the biggest thing that changed for me was in 2009 when my mother became ill, because I'm very close to my family. My parents have passed now, but my mom had Alzheimer's and she had broken her hip. And it was to the point where she couldn't speak, she couldn't walk, she couldn't feed herself. And we had a group of us of the family that were looking after her. And I had to augment my business so that I could do whatever I needed to do from her bedside or from the hospital or wherever we were, because it was a constant changing thing. 1 minute she's fine, the next minute we're on our way to ER. So and it was that way for 3 years. So that taught me how to restructure everything so that first, I think I was probably one of the first remotely working people I ever knew, because I am in a facility right here. This building is about 30 feet from my back door. So I've always worked out of this building. I've worked here for 26 years, and COVID didn't affect it because I was already set up. Zoom got better, which was great because it sucked before, and then COVID happened. Oh, look, this is great. It works now, right? So for a lot of people, COVID was terrible, and I was dealing with my dad during that point. I had moved him in with me. You get these personal things that run in. If you're running your own business, it's not like you can take a day off and somebody else can do it. Yeah. So that is definitely one of the things that gets in the way. But I think if I had to pick one thing, it's being able to explain what we do to a world that is about 6 seconds worth of social media and doesn't understand the value of something longer lasting.
So what's your, shifting gears, what's the challenge you have in front of you right now?
Again, with the typewriter ribbon. I think the biggest challenge we have right now is getting in front of the right people. I've sort of changed, when you're a small business, people only see that. They don't often recognize your capacity is much larger. There's not really much of a limit on what we can do for a particular size company, given I have all the resources that I need. And we pull resources as needed. Everything we do is in-house except a couple of things that are sort of add-ons. So if we need graphic design done, I have someone for that. If we have web development, I do some of it, but I have resources. I hand them off to them and say, okay, I give them the material and say, here's this stuff. And I partner with people to do those things because I don't want to get away from, even though I know how to do that. I am a coder, I can write in HTML all day long. I don't want to do that. I would rather someone else do it. So I think the challenge we face right now is getting in front of the right type of company, because we are B2B. There's very few people outside of maybe writers, authors that are looking to promote books or something like that. There's very few people who can use us as a residential person or an individual. It's got to be a business. And helping them to understand that it is a long-term thing. It's not a one and done at all. We have to do this, and then there's follow-up to it to make it work. And I think that's where a lot of digital marketers fail, because they want to sell them this package and keep fire hosing money on them. They want you to pay them month after month after month after month, and they can't prove there's a result. If I don't show you that you have 40 million sets of eyeballs looking at this PR piece we just put out, I'm going to quit. I'm getting out of business. That's the average for us, is 40 million people see your press piece. So it's like a whole, getting them to understand that is really hard, but just getting in front of them is even harder, because well, we have a marketing department, or we don't need PR. We don't have any use for that. They don't realize everything you put out on social media is PR. So you need somebody to look at that and go, stop saying that. If you get somebody who's, complaining about something, let them complain about it and ignore it. Maybe reach out to them directly. Can we solve your problem for you? But don't go back and forth with them on social media. That's part of our damage control. The mitigation of your reputation is also important to us. That's all part of that process. But again, getting in front of people who understand that is tough.
Yeah. So what's your vision for the future? You dream, you look, hey, maybe 5 years down the road, where's your dream for the business?
Really, I've never wanted to grow it very big. I like it the size it is, because I was larger a while back. Many years ago, I had, multiple people working with me, and I had a part-time assistant and, office manager type person, all that. And I just didn't like it. I didn't care for that. So I think just to maintain what we have and grow enough that our revenue is better, and that the type of clients we're getting is what we want, where we have long-term relationships. I don't want one-offs. I want somebody who's really interested in building something together. I want to be a partner to them, which is, I can't show you this, but if you could see my job board and see how the people that are in one section of the job board, it's a magnetic whiteboard, and they've got their cards in different places. Those people in one corner of it are long-term carriers. People have been with us 3, 4, 5 years. And that's what we're looking for. We want to make sure it's not about fire hosing money on us, because it might go 3 months and we don't hear from them. But then it's ready and they need something, and we're right there and we're available to them. So I think stability in that, and trying to be there and build those partnerships, that's really where I want to go. I want to make sure that we continue that. I've started to grow my writing business a little bit more, because I'm looking towards retirement, whenever that's going to be. And my partner says she's just going to look over and I'm going to be dead at the chair and staring at the screen, and that's it. There are worse ways to go, but just to have something that I can continue doing. We were kidding about the typewriters, but that's one of those things that is part of that. It's just understanding, what is it you do well. I'm a writer at heart. That's my number one job. Everything we do here is based on communication. So having that if I'm looking forward 3, 5, 6 years, whatever it is, it's going to be that our messaging is always going to be more important than anything else. That's what I am best at providing to people. I can see stuff they don't see. Everybody can. You put a third set of eyeballs on something, you're going to get different answers. So you want to make sure that you want to work with people who are listening to that. So that's all part of that as well. I think I answered your question in there somewhere.
Yeah, no. I mean, some folks have the grandiose dreams. They have a certain dollar figure, big number they want to shoot for.
Well, no,
others are much more passionate around.
I would like to not always be under the gun, which is when you own a business, that's how it is. It's not that you're, in a constant state of urgency, but there are times when it's doing very well and it's plugging right along, and then it crashes and like nobody's calling you. And you wonder, okay, is it time to turn the lights out and go home, which is, 30 feet that way. But, I don't think that's it. I think it's more about, for me, it's more about making sure it's doing what I want to do and not what I have to do. When I first started, in 1998, I took my first job. I got my first phone call. It reminded me of Ghostbusters, when they get that first call and the girl yells, "We've got one," and she hits the bell. And I had a moment like that. And it was just me and this guy. I was living in London, Ohio at the time. It was before I moved into this space. And I had put this ad out. And back then you put ads on the outside of phone books on vinyl. There were these vinyl covers, and I had a little ad on there. and it went to Lancaster, which was an hour away from me. And this guy calls me, he had this problem. He's like, I think you can help me. Can you, whatever. And I charged $45 as a flat fee. Now, I didn't even think about travel time. I wasn't thinking like that. I drove an hour to fix this guy's computer, which took me maybe 20 minutes. And I drove back and I had the check for $45. And I was more proud of that $45 check. Now I was $9,000 in the hole by this time because I was building the company up and buying stuff and just getting everything settled. But that, I don't want to do that anymore. So after that, I was taking any job that came in, because when you first start, that's what you have to do. Mm-hmm. You'll do whatever it takes, mm-hmm. And this logo had a lot more stuff behind it than the 5 or 6 things we do now, but it was like everything was in there. Sure, you need your dog walked? Sure, no problem. I'll walk the dog. It's got an electronic collar thing, so that counts. That's technical, right? We'll go do that. And I was writing for anybody who would hire me. I was writing for every newspaper, every publication. I had a standing thing with an organization called the Oregon Computer Journal, which was out. No kidding, it was in Oregon. It was near Portland, and it was a whole journal based on computer stuff. And they were hiring me to write a piece every month. And that was, I had never heard of these guys. They sent me a letter and said, hey, we read something. I don't even know how it was out there in the internet somewhere, but it was like that. So I think, to make sure that's a thing, is that's where we're headed. I think it's really about what you want to be and not having to do the things that you don't want to do anymore. To me, that's successful. And yeah, I want to be financially secure. I want to make sure we can pay our bills and the mortgage is paid, stuff like that. But I don't have those big, long, I don't need to make 200,000 a year, stuff like that. I don't care about that. If we do, Julie says, yes, we do. Spoken like a true equity partner, right? I get half of that. So yes, we do. We want to do that.
So Gery, kind of building upon that then. So we have a lot of folks who plug into this that are kind of newer in their journey as an entrepreneur. What's the 1 or 2 things?
Go get a real job. Don't do it. Don't no. Put your resumes out there. Don't do this.
Gery.
Okay, so what you want to know is
what your 1 or 2 keys to success that you would share with others?
First, number one thing I always tell people when they ask me that question is, don't take it so seriously. You are not the best at what you do. There's always somebody better. There's a lot of somebody's better, but remember that there's a whole lot of somebody's that aren't as good. So don't take yourself so seriously. Don't take the world so seriously. The best way I can do that is to point again to the typewriter. If somebody saw this without context, they would go, that's just some old fart that won't let go. Right? He's not going to, he's just lost in the 1980s. You know what? I programmed computers from the time I was 11 years old. This is not me being nostalgic, because that's not what it would be. It would be a Commodore VIC-20, sitting here with a TV attached to it. I would tell him not to take yourself seriously. I would also say, don't run before you crawl. I know everybody wants to jump up, and the best thing to me is I like to surround myself with people I don't necessarily agree with who are way smarter than I am. And that happens a lot. And I've got a group of people that was in my writers group who we get along pretty well, but we were not in a group anymore, but we were still friends. And the thing I liked about them is they had no problem telling me when I was wrong. And it was necessary. And you have to have that. It's hard sometimes because there are times around here that is definitely my way or the highway. You do what I tell you exactly the way I tell you, or don't bother, because it's my name on the wall and it's my livelihood. Other people can go get other jobs, but this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. As far as I know, this is it. So I need to make it work. If you don't want to be a part of that, that's fine. But if you want to be a client, then you listen to what I tell you. This is another thing too. If someone hires you and they're not going to listen to your advice, walk away. No check is worth it, because you will not earn that money any better than you will just by trying to dodge the bullets that are coming after you, because they won't be happy. So those are my 3 things, I think.
All right. Well, hey, as we look to wrap up here, what are the best ways for folks to stay connected with you and to follow GLD?
Well, you can find GLD Communications online. That's our website, gldcommunications.com. And you can also look us up on LinkedIn. There's a one for the company. There's one for me personally. It's easy to find me there. And then and we're on all social media platforms that are typical, Facebook and Instagram. Um, I would say probably the easiest thing to do if you want to reach out to me. There's a contact page on our website. Just go to that, and I'll get the note.
All right. Thanks, Gery. So as we wrap up here, what are you inspired by today?
What am I? I'm inspired by the fact that people aren't giving up on our political system. They're still trying. They're still, I'm not talking about politics in general. I mean, everybody. To me, watching people be excited by something that they like, if maybe it's a political person, or maybe it's an actor, or maybe it's a movie that came out, or some job that they did. I work a lot with writers groups and writers conferences, and I'm always blown away by the people who are just head down. I'm going to finish this book, or I'm going to do that job, or I'm going to make this perfect. And I've always admired that, because that's what I try to do all the time. And probably to a fault. Like I'm the first one to tell you I go way overboard with things, but I think it's interesting that people are still inspired. So the question was, what inspires me? Other people being inspired. I think that when that happens, I think that's when it gets my fire going too. It makes it easier to get out there and keep trying.
All right. Well, Gery Deer, thank you for taking the time out to share your extremely diverse background story, all the various titles, and then kind of you can see your passion for communications and partnering with clients. So, for those who are listening to this, and you're leading your business and you're trying to figure out how to get to the next level, but how to get your message out, some of what he shared here and what his team does really separates you from your competitors out there. When you can tell your story authentically, that's what people are going to remember. That's the kind of thing people want to do business with folks like that.
Absolutely.
So encourage you to reach out to Gery and GLD. Again, for those viewers, we appreciate you joining us here today. Hit that like button, and also hit subscribe if you haven't already done that, so you can receive future messages from other inspiring entrepreneurs like you heard from Gery here today. With that, thank you, and hope you all have a terrific day.